Okay. Cool. Welcome, folks. Good Tov, Shavua Tov. Good week to everybody. Welcome to the continued journey, Torah studies. So the envelope always gets pushed further and further, perhaps not in a healthy direction. And today I want to speak about the idea of, if you want to call it humility, if you want to call it submission, subjugated. We live in a world today that, you got to stand up and hold things the way you see it and don't get pushed around. Is there a way that you can stand up, not get pushed around, and yet be coming from a place of humility? Let's talk about that. So let's look at the parsha. This is the parsha of Yaakov Avinu, Jacob, our forefather. At the age of 77, he arrives at his uncle's home, Lavan, where he meets his two daughters, gets married to both of them, Leah, then Rachel. He builds a family together. Not just a family, 12 sons, 12 tribes. And to pay for his hand in marriage, Yaakov shepherds Lavan's sheep 14 years. Let's go to this week's parsha. Second. Apologies. Okay. All right. Okay, let's share the screen. Sorry. There we go. Oh, something's wrong with the, not very clear. Something happened with the letters there. Okay, I'll read it. So this is version. And it came to pass after Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, give me leave, and I will return to my place in my land. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, so that I may go. For you know well that the services I have rendered you. Now, Laban had some other ideas, though, his father-in-law, and he says to him, Laban said to him, if I have found favor in your eyes, indulge me, for God has blessed me on your account. And he continued, name your wages due from me, and I will pay you. Now, Laban, his point was very simple. Yaakov worked 14 years, but collected no wages. I mean, he got 2 wives out of it, but still had to work 14 years. And yet Laban prospered. And he knew, Laban, that he prospered because of Yaakov and his merit. So he wanted to repay him. So Yaakov proposed terms of partnership that would grant him ownership over certain portions of the flock, the spotted, the striped, and the blotched sheep. And God was very kind to Yaakov and made him prosper prolifically. As a result, he had fabulous wealth. Again, in this week's Torah portion, the man Jacob, Yaakov, grew exceedingly prosperous, and he owned large flocks of sheep and numerous maidservants, manservants, camels, and donkeys. Rashi comments on this verse, and he says, large flocks, they were fruitful and multiplied more than the other animals. Maidservants and men servants, he would sell his animals at a high price and purchase all of these. So Yaakov's first preoccupation was with sheep. And because of the sheep, that he was prolific in propagating them, even, he sold off sheep at a high price and was able to buy other things, other possessions. But his primary line is sheep. So our first question is, what is this? Why is it so important, the preoccupation with sheep, being a shepherd? Not only was Yaakov a shepherd, but so was Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, so was King David. We see that this is somehow synonymous with great leaders. How so? Why so? You need to understand that. Second question is that when he was about to return home after making his great wealth, he sent a message to his brother Esau, outlining to him what he had done for the last, more than 2 decades, and about his wealth. So his wealth, he says, I have acquired oxen, donkeys, sheep, men servants, and maid servants. So the question is, why did Yaakov not mention sheep first, which was his main occupation? But first he mentions oxen. Why would that be? And further, later on, when he does actually bring him the gifts, sheep are not the first thing. As it says, 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats and 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 nursing camels with their young, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 she-donkeys, and 10 he-donkeys. So here, again, sheep is not the first thing. What is it? What's going on? Why wouldn't he mention that which he was most preoccupied? Why wouldn't the verse mention that first? So we need to understand that. Also, the nuance over here, we need to understand the idea that he took sheep, and with sheep he bought oxen. What is the nuanced meaning behind it? Now, simple meaning is just he had a variety of animals, but on a deeper level, it's more than just a variety of different animals. There's a specific message here, okay? So we'll come back to this later. Our sages in the Talmud speak about our relationship with God. They speak about it in a different variety of relationships. There's a spousal relationship, husband and wife, right? That is an idea that's about in Torah, giving the Torah. There is a relationship of siblings. Today, what we're going to speak about is the relationship that there is as God as a parent and God as a shepherd. So let's take a look. The Medrash tells us, he is a father to me, and I am a son to him. He is a father to me, as the passage attests, for you are our father, it says in Isaiah. And for I was a father to Israel, as it says in Jeremiah. And I am a son to him, to God, as the passage attests, my son, my firstborn Israel, as it says in Exodus. And you are all sons of God, as it says in Deuteronomy. He is my shepherd, as the passage attests. Hear, O shepherd of Israel, it says in Psalms, I am to him as sheep, as the passage attests, and you are my sheep, the sheep of my flock. Now, for those who are familiar with the High Holiday liturgy, well, particularly Yom Kippur liturgy, it's a beautiful melody that we sing 5 times throughout the holiday, each one of the services, Ki Anu Amecha, beautiful melody. And what do we say there about the different types of relationships we have with God? And what do we say there? We are your sons and you are our father. We are your sheep and you are our shepherd. Right? So we need to understand, what is this quality of connection to God that we have as a shepherd? And especially when we speak about being a child of God. Especially being a child of God. Meaning, just on human terms, a parent and their relationship to their child is very different than the shepherd to their sheep. God forbid something happens to the child, a loss of a child, God forbid, you mourn. A loss of a sheep, you don't mourn. So obviously there's a much deeper connection and relationship that a father has to a child than the shepherd has to the sheep. So what is the significance of it? And furthermore, if we're speaking about, the relationship, usually you would go from the lesser to the greater. So you would first explain the lesser relationship, which seemingly would be that of a sheep and shepherd, to a child, to a parent, to a father. It would come second. But here it's the opposite. What comes first in the Medrash is the relationship that we have to God as a son to a father. And then we speak about a sheep to a shepherd. So if you have this very deep relationship of a child to a parent, what are you gaining by this adding after that? Our relationship that we have to God as a sheep with his shepherd. So let's understand. What is it unique? Something about sheep that a child doesn't have. Anybody? Tell me something a sheep. What does a sheep have that a child doesn't have? Wool. Yes. All right. I mean, some kids have a head of wool. A head of hairs, it's like wool. What else? Quality-wise.
Understanding.
Sheep have understanding?
No.
Fear.
I'm saying, what is there something that sheep have that a child doesn't have? The sheep is fully and completely at the shepherd's beck and call. It doesn't have its own self-interest, inclinations that allow it to get in the way. Right? Child, on the other hand, has their own will, have their own whims. Eventually they move out of the house even. Not that they disappear, but they move out. The sheep is always there by the shepherd and always following what the shepherd wants. But the child has an inherent connection to the parent. So the Rebbe explains this week's Sikha. So calling Jews children demonstrates that they are independent of their father, God. The very word child connotes a separate being who is not the parent, that is valued and loved by the parent. However, with respect to God, who transcends all creation, nothing exists outside of him. Relative to God, Jews and God's love for them are like sheep, who, despite all of their attractive features, have no comparative value to the shepherd. On the other hand, portraying the Jew as sheep presents the Jew in a sublime light. Although nothing in all of existence has comparative value to God, the Jew is nevertheless beloved by God. Except that on this level, we are not beloved for who we are. We are beloved for our complete surrender to God. So let me explain. My son was showing me, pictures of his child. This position, that position, this smile, that, and seeing the preciousness of the child and all of its unique ways. So of course there's an inherent connection, but as a separate being, we look at the child and we have a appreciation for their unique, the way they smile, the way they interact, whatever it is that they do. Right? So in other words, what we're connecting to usually when it comes to a child is to their cuteness, to their value. And of course, the parent's relationship to the child is ultimately inherent and is beyond any value. But the way you connect is through the value, right? The preciousness of the child. And not so with sheep. Sheep, it's one in a flock. They're all the same, right? In other words, the connection that God has to us is not because we are special as the child is to the parent, right? It's like when the parent speaks about their child as if it's like the only child in the world, as if they're like, they could do no wrong and they're just perfect. Sheep brings out not the value or the value of any sheep, no value, right? So before God, we don't have value. It's not because of, this guy, he's got a good head. Let me, this one, she has great talents. No, nothing at all. No talent. We're not beloved for what we are. We're beloved for our complete surrender to God. That's what we're beloved. So in the Hebrew language, this is a word that is difficult to translate. We've used this word many times in the past. and we'll try to wrap our minds around it. The word bittul. So we call it self-nullification, humility, being docile, subservient, submissive, self-abnegation, self-effacement. It's much more than that. Bittul is the idea of being absorbed in something that's greater than you, to the point that you lose your sense of self. You don't feel that you're an independent being because you're part of that greater self, the greater being. So when we stand before God, it's possible for us to experience utter bittul, meaning we're aware that nothing exists outside of him. And therefore, I'm not a thing. I'm just a part of God. I'm no thing. I don't assert myself or insist on anything that I desire or I choose. I have no will, only the will of God. Why? Because I'm a part of him. So of all the animals, sheep express this characteristic most. Donkeys are stubborn, horses are fast, oxen are powerful, sheep are docile, they're submissive, they surrender to the shepherd. As we say in English, sheepish. So the Rebbe Rashab, the Mittler Rebbe, he says in a Mimer, sheep are more utterly submissive than any other animal. Though an ox is primed for the yoke, it also gores, right? So meaning it's submissive, but it's also gores. There is also an occasional wayward cow and a calf. Goats also gore with their horns. Sheep, however, are soft in nature and submissive to all. For example, when the shearer approaches the sheep, allows itself to be shorn without a shred of resistance, as it's written, silent like sheep before its shearers. It never opens its mouth in protest. So with this, we have an answer to one of our two questions. We asked earlier that why the great Jewish leaders, Yaakov, Moshe, David, they were shepherds. What's the connection? It's because they felt that they were totally nothing for themselves, but totally null before the greatness of God. And they were absorbed in God, within God. What does that mean? The natural state of a human being is that the first thing is you exist. You exist, you have a desire, you want something, you want things, right? And we see as children grow up, they want to assert their independence. They want their will to be fulfilled, right? So the natural state of the human condition and human beings is self-independence and asserting oneself. That's the nature of the human condition. But for the Jew, bittul is the default state of the godly soul. Now it's of the godly soul. So most of us are not so attuned to the godly soul, so therefore it's not our natural state. But for great holy people who are attuned to the natural state of the godly soul of bittul, well, they live with that. And that's Yaakov, that's Moshe, that's David. And therefore, they needed this bittul to train themselves in order that they should finally become great leaders of the Jewish people. That was their characteristic. Is that clear? Okay. Now, we need to understand more deeply, what is this concept of bittul? What do we mean by that? We gave a lot of words: submissive, humble, docile, surrender, self-abnegation. We have a bunch of words that sometimes feel like, maybe a little too much, maybe not so practical, not so real. So what does it mean we have to surrender? Does it mean, the things that I enjoy in life or I'm good at, I have to give them up? Is that what it means? If I'm an athlete or a musician, I have to give it up. Is that what it means? So let's understand what authentic bittul is, this Jewish idea. So it's never to deny the strengths that you have. That's not bittul. Rather, what it is to see them as not strengths that you created, but God gave them to you. They're not yours. That's bittul. So Rabbi says, many people equate humility with inferiority. This is not so. Inferiority means to know ourselves and to recognize our inferior value compared to others, meaning that we are truly devoid of value, or if we have value, it is unknown to us. This is not humility, it is inferiority. Authentic humility means to be a person of strengths. Such people know and recognize their value and are not at all haughty about it. They don't even give themselves credit for the strengths because they know that all their exalted strengths and abilities are endowed by God. So we all have interests in things of life, and we all have talents. So bittul doesn't mean that you put those aside and just study Torah a whole day or pray a whole day. No. What it means is you connect it to God. Firstly, by recognizing that this is a gift given to you by God. You didn't create it. There's nothing for you to praise yourself about. Your great capability. Oh, what a teacher. Oh, what an amazing, philanthropist. You recognize that your money came from God. Your nature that you have is God-given. In fact, that you're capable of teaching, that's a God-given quality, right? So you don't, that talent is not self-acclaimed, but it's God-acclaimed. Furthermore, so that's the first thing, right? Bittul means recognizing that you're not the source of your greatness. Another important thing is if you have a talent and you love music, so you could play music because, hey, it's my way. Or you could play music because it's God's way. In other words, the God-given talent that you recognize comes from God. Still, you could use it for your own personal purposes and ends. As the popular American song goes, I did it my way. Bittul is about the very opposite of doing it your way. It's not that your way is not to be done. But you don't do it your way. You do yours in God's ways. So if you have an interest, a talent in some area in life, right? God wants you to use them, to use those talents, but not in a selfish way, but in a selfless way. So this is the idea of bittul. Bittul is first a recognition that I'm not the source of this great capacity, of this achievement. And furthermore, that this talent that I have, I'm using it in God's way, right? Now, we said earlier that sheep are docile. And as a result, they're the preeminent symbol of bittul. But sheep are also a preeminent symbol of authentic bittul. In other words, using the God-given talents to one's utmost. What does it mean? In other words, we're saying that, so the first point again is, it's a God-given quality. So I'm not praising me, I'm praising God in my achievement. Right? Secondly, that talent and that interest, I'm doing it for the sake of God rather than for my personal sake, right? Now, how do I do it in a manner that it's real bittul, that it's not about me, it's about the cause that I'm doing it for? So the very word in Hebrew for sheep is tzon. The word tzon, sheep, is related in the word tzei, to be someone who goes out. So bittul, right, this humility, this submissiveness, is self-abnegation, all the words that we used previously. Now we're getting more of a deeper, better understanding of what it means. It means recognizing that it's a God-given talent and using that God-given talent not for selfish but selfless purposes, for God's sake, to connect to God, in other words. And the word say means to go out. What's the proof that you're doing it not for your own self? Is when you're able to go out of your comfort zone. Right? We all live in a bubble. We all live in a box called our comfort zone. And it's very difficult to stray from there, to go out from there, because we're not comfortable. And one of the primary things in life that we want is comfort. Right? So here we're saying that sinus is bittul, that it's not about me. Where will that express itself that it's not about me? As the Rabbi says in the Sikha, only this way of serving God, stepping out of one's comfort zone, expresses a Jew's true surrender to God. This way of serving God is not materially self-serving or even spiritual self-serving. It is purely to fulfill God's purpose, which is in turn is to turn our world into a habitat for God. So any other choice that you do, right, sitting in your comfort zone, why are you sitting in your comfort zone? Because it's about you. And why are you feeling that it's about you? Because you feel you're separate from God, right? Bittul is feeling the sense of the presence of God in such a way that it's not about me. It's not about me. So therefore, I can go out of my comfort zone as a result. Now, what kind of strengths do we need to possess in order to succeed in such a sacred task? So we're saying you need bittul, right? Bittul will allow you to go out of your comfort zone. But is that enough? Is there any other qualities that we need in order to succeed? So says the Alter Rebbe, brazen like a lion is to stand firm before those who mock us. Mighty like a lion, like a leopard. That was brazen like a leopard, I'm sorry. Mighty like a lion, might is primarily in the heart. To overcome our sinful inclinations as a warrior overpowers the enemy to defeat him and to throw him to the ground. Similarly, we must wake up each morning like a lion ready to overpower our sinful inclinations and to wake up before the light of dawn to serve God so that we awaken the morning rather than the morning awakens us. Ooh. So, people feel, oh, meek and meager is not good. That's true. Because then you won't be powerful like a lion. You won't be strong. Right? Now, so if you're going to be strong, how's that going to fit in with bittul? Bittul means it's not about me. It's self-effacing. It's an abnegation of self. So an abnegation of self, where'd the lion all of a sudden come in? Where's the leopard over here? Where'd he get this from? So this is the key. And this is the important point over here. How can you have these two opposites coexist in one person? You might say one person, oh, he's docile, he's submissive, right? Another person, he's, might like a lion. No, we need to be both. We need to have both capacities. And not just both capacities, today I was strong like a lion, but the day before I was more docile like a sheep. No, we need to have them both at the same time. How so? How do we have them both at the same time? Can they be at the same time? Says the Rebbe, authentic surrender, authentic bittul to God is not a conflict with firmness and assertiveness. This is because it is not your firmness and assertiveness. It is God's. Oh, beautiful. This is similar to the saying of our sages, the servant of a king is a king. Attaining the status of a king doesn't trigger feelings of self-importance and pride in the servant, because he realizes that his status is due to the king's significance and greatness, not his own. Wow, that's powerful. So, in other words, bittul means that even when you stand firm like and assertive, even when you're powerful like a lion, you recognize that firmness and assertiveness is not you. It's God within you. So just as the bittul is God within you, that you're submissive, so the God within you is that you're powerful. It's the God part that's within the individual. How do you access that? With bittul. So when you can have bittul, that you can have super powerful strength. Usually when people put on an air of power, it's usually coming from an ego. And that ego is just inflated. And that person can be easily deflated. But when you're coming from a place that it's not about you, and your power is not your personal power, right? Which is really to cover up on your insecurities. But it is a power that is invested in you because you nullify yourself to Hashem. As a result, that gives you the power to stand up to anyone in any situation. Is that clear? Now we can understand the name of the parsha. It's called Vayeitzei. It means he went out. What does it mean he went out? He went out of his comfort zone. Vayeitzei Yaakov Be'ersheva Be'elech Harana. And Yaakov went out of Be'ersheva. We did today, Chumash Rashi. We asked the question, why does it have to say he went out of Be'ersheva? So explained over there. Now is a deeper explanation. Why did he leave Be'ersheva? Be'ersheva is where he lived his entire life. He learned his first 15 years Torah with his grandfather Avraham. Then he continued his studies with his father and finally on his own. After having a very great foundation in Torah study, he began his spiritual growth. And finally, all of this is done in the Holy Land in Beersheba. And now he's leaving. And where is he going? From a holy place to he's going to Haran. Haran means translates the name of a place, but it also means anger, meaning it was the anger spot of the world. And that's where he's going. Who's going to go to? Lavan. Lavan, who's deceitful. Is that his comfort zone? Absolutely not. His comfort zone is to sit, learn Torah, his comfort zone is at 7:05 in the morning to come and learn Chassidus, 8:30 to come and learn Chumash and Rashi, and then 9:30 to go and do Tanya, and then after that to do Rambam. Sunday nights to come at 6:30 here to learn Parsha, to learn Torah studies, and of course Wednesday nights the JLI. That's a comfort zone. That was Yaakov's comfort zone. But he had to leave it. Why did he leave it? Bittul. It's not about him. This is what he had to do. And he can go even to a place of a cunning individual. And what does he do? Does he merely get fruits? Is he a survivor? God forbid. Jews are not survivors. They're thrivers. He thrives there. He thrives there in family, bringing up 12 children in a faithful manner, that they're all part and parcel of the Jewish people. And he's also extremely successful materially, very successful. Meaning, in a place that is not his comfort zone, he can be extremely successful nonetheless. Why? Because he didn't do it his way. His way would not be to be there. His way would be to be in the tent of study. He did it God's way. God's way is that I need you to go to Haran, with deceitful Lavan, and to raise there 12 tribes of Israel, and to come away there with great wealth, spiritual wealth and material wealth. So let's now go back to our question that we had of Yaakov when he came to Esav, next week's Parsha. So he doesn't start with his main occupation of sheep. He starts with oxen, and then donkeys, and then only sheep. So we asked the question, why doesn't he begin with sheep? If sheep was his main wealth, came from there, so the reference to his wealth should be about sheep. So the answer is, and also we asked the question, with the sheep, he was able to purchase and to get oxen and donkeys and other things, right? So what was the meaning, spiritual meaning behind that? So this is what it means. Remember, we said that you can be strong, that you can be powerful like a lion, right? Strong like an ox, stubborn like a donkey. In other words, bittul, sheep, acquires these other qualities. Authentic bittul doesn't mean you are docile, you're submissive, you're meek and meager. Not at all. It acquires, just as sheep, with the sheep he acquired oxen and donkeys. You acquire power, strength of an ox, stubbornness of a donkey. But where is it all coming from? Not your stubbornness, not your strength, the strength and stubbornness of God that is planted in you and is a part of you. So when Yaakov is sending word to Esau that he's about to return to come back home, what does he need to show him? Strength and stubbornness, but not the regular kind that is conceited, but one that is rooted in bittul. Text number 11. By saying, I acquired oxen, donkeys, sheep, and manservants and maidservants, Jacob wanted to remind Esau of the lofty merits and the strengths that that would sustain him. By this, he would intimate to Esau and keep him from doing what he wanted to do. He did not begin with sheep, which is a symbol of surrender, lowliness, and submission. because to be intimidated, Esau would first and primarily need to hear about Yaakov's strengths. It was indeed important that Esau know that Yaakov had sheep submission. This would tell him that Jacob's strength was not his own. They were God's strengths. But how do we intimidate Esau? Only with strength. So you got to show strength. That will intimidate. But where's the strength coming from? It's not from haughtiness. It's not from ego. Not from self-importance. Not because it's not about you. So it's coming from sheep, but that's not what you're showing. You're first showing the oxen. And he needs to know, hey, we're powerful. We're strong. We can be assertive. And not that that's contrary to Bittul. On the contrary, it comes from Bittul. So what do we take out from this? Very powerful lesson. So we all have Bittul means not that you don't recognize your power. You recognize that you have a power. Not that you are kind of, no, not that good. No, you're that good. But it's not your goodness. It's not your greatness. It's God's greatness. And then use it out. Don't say, okay, this is not part of, God gave me this talent, so use it. And use it not for selfish, self-fulfilling purposes, but selfless purpose. And that will lead you from being a sheep to being powerful like an ox, being stubborn like a donkey when you need to be stubborn. And that's not haughty. That's coming from Bittul. If you look at the Rebbe, you see the Rebbe, real king, the seat of power. But at the same time, he projects an assurity, not meekerness, an assurity, a certainty. But where's it coming from? That he's absorbed in his divine source. And it's not about what he needs, but what he's needed for. And therefore, that gives us the strength that we can go out of our comfort zone and be powerful in that place. So we're coming from the Kinnis HaShluchim last week, right? And the Kinnis HaShluchim tells us that we have to go out of our comfort zone, brighten up the world. Go out of our comfort, brighten up the world. Indeed, we must study Torah to prepare ourselves, but then we must go out into the world and make the world a brighter place. This work is exceedingly critical in our generation, when many Jews are wandering about in a spiritual darkness of our exile. Is find them and lead them to the arena of light, the candle of mitzvah, and the Torah of light. This is not just a matter of extending existence, but a matter of saving lives. And that's our generation, a generation of shlichos. Shlichos means to go out. A shliach means they're sent by an emissary. The Rebbe sends us. We're God's emissaries, the Jewish people. Right? We're God's emissaries. And if you choose that, you're the Rebbe's emissary to bring light into this dark world. But that means going out of your comfort zone. That's how it's going to express itself when it's not about you. Now, comfort zone can simply mean that you will go out on the street or in a business meeting with maybe another lawyer, Ask that lawyer, did you put on tefillin today? I have a pair of tefillin over here. Come, let's do the mitzvah. Guarantee you that that is uncomfortable for many a person to do that, right? Yeah, we're doing business now. Well, what are you mixing in religion over here? Not mixing in religion. You're just bringing a mitzvah. You're bringing light. Light has to be everywhere. And getting and going out, Vayeitzei, to go out. So we have the power. We can do it because we've been sent. Been sent by the Almighty. We've been sent by the Rebbe. And we have the power that we can go to whatever situation, and put on tefillin. So I think I told this maybe a few weeks ago, but worthy of telling it again. Between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I went to Israel for my sister's wedding. Actually, I officiated it. Anyways, on the way back, on the flight, so on the way there were a lot of Jewish people on the flight. On the way back, it didn't look so Jewish. But hey, I'm a chassid, got to put on tefillin with Jews. But I must say that I looking around, it didn't look so Jewish. It didn't look like too inviting. So at one point, then all of a sudden it gets dark. It's funny, and now I was just told why it gets dark is because you don't fly straight. You're flying curvature, so you're going up further north, and it got dark, even though I was landing at 4:00 and sunset was only after 6, right? So it took some time till it got light again. And then I speak to the Jew there's a person next to me. I thought for sure it's not Jewish. It's Jewish. He says, yeah. So come, let's do a mitzvah together, tefillin. Sure. And we put on. Then the guy behind me, he was going to Tampa. Then the guy behind me, he was going to Barrie, Ontario, an Israeli actually, his wife and baby. And he also put on. But that was easy because that was like in my comfort zone because it was in my seat. In my seat. Then, okay, that's it. I walk up and I announce if anybody would like to have the opportunity to do the mitzvah of tefillin. I said in English, I said in Hebrew, might catch some Israeli. In Hebrew, might catch them. And I'm trying to look to see who might be Jewish and, to make eye contact and so on. I'm literally walking up and down the aisles, and there's some religious people there and say, "Oh, Chabad, they're tremendous." They're tremendous. It was cute. In any case, another person also put on tefillin. I think it was 3 in all that put on tefillin. And the third person was like standing in front of everybody in the whole cabin. That it was a very clear statement. The other ones were sitting in their place, but this one was standing, and I was standing. And anyways, point is that Vayeitzei, this week's parsha, you have to go out into a place that might not be so comfortable. They all need to do that for the sake of Hashem. Where's that power? Where do we get that from? When it's not about me, it's about the cause that I am and that I'm needed for. And when I can have that, then I can also be strong as an ox. Powerful. Because it's not my power, the power of God that's in me that I'm expressing. L'chaim. Any questions? All All right. Beautiful.
Thank you very much.
You're fine.
I missed something else in the chat here. Who was telling about an actor? Davida? Oh no, Andrew.
Andrew,
Yeah,
thank-
my rabbi, there was David Arquette was on the plane, and his wife said, "There's David Arquette," and he said, "I'm going to go up to him," and they went to the back of the plane and they put on song.
Very
Good for
nice. Very nice. I don't know if David Arquette is.
And neither did my rabbi. His wife was a little more. But believe me, he had no idea. But at the OA on Thursday, it was amazing. There were so many people there. They were lined up to put on spelling. They hadn't. They
Wow.
went, but they hadn't done it. So
Right, beautiful.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You went. Beautiful. All right. All right, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank
See
you,
you
Rabbi.
soon.
TRC coming up.
Okay, we'll be there. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you.